Do you often disagree with people?
No, I like to listen to what people have to say. I don't disagree with people.
I disagree sometimes, but I try to be as, understanding and agreeing as possible.
No, I tend to agree. I mean, even if it might be something that's bad for them.
I honestly usually disagree with people because I like being right all the time.
I love to disagree with people. It's fun.
I always disagree with everybody, pretty much.
I often disagree with people, and I know there's people out there that disagree with me.
I used to have a friend that disagrees with everything I said.
My best friend usually disagrees with me when it comes to girl topics. He's more the cheater, and I'm more the, I stay faithful.
Me and my friends usually fight for the last word. We always want to be right.
Everyone's not the same. We all have different things that's going on in our head, and different views or opinions, want to do different things.
You're not always right, but you think you are.
I try to support them as much as possible, but I still have my opinion behind it.
If I truly think that they are false about it, I will stand my right. I will make sure that I'm right.
Are you the kind of person who always has to be right? Like Kenny?
What? No way.
Yes, absolutely. Remember the other day when you were trying to tell me that the Eagles were better than the Giants? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The Giants are the best team in football.
No. I'm definitely right on that one.
No, Kenny. No, that's just your opinion.
Yeah, it's my opinion, but it's right.
Disagreements are inevitable.
Just like people, they come in all shapes and sizes.
The problem isn't the disagreement. It's how we resolve it, or agreeing to disagree.
I disagree with you, so you're wrong. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Kenny.
And I'm Jess.
And this is Realfaith TV. We all come from different environments, such as our family or origin.
Neighborhood, state, or a totally different place on the globe.
With all the possible combinations of people and their philosophies and beliefs, failing to see eye to eye is going to happen.
Our spotlight guest today is Kayla. She'll tell us that although she does like to be right,
she does listen to what other people have to say.
We'll hear from her a little later in the show, as well as find out how the teens on the street settle their disagreements.
But first, let's meet our studio guests and find out if they often disagree with others.
Okay, they are Phil, Nick, Vince, Chris, Jackie, Matt, and Danielle.
So do you guys disagree with others?
I try to avoid conflict at all costs. I do not like disagreement. I don't like disagreeing with others. And if it comes to the fact that I have to stand my ground on something, I'm really firm. And I think I'm kind of like one of the teens on the street. I'll stand my beliefs, but I'm not gonna push them on you unless you ask. So.
I'm completely different from you. People need to know that I'm right, and I need to be right all the time. That's just how I am, I guess. So I mean, a lot of people here know that too. We were messing around before, but it's definitely true. I love being right.
I'm gonna have to side with Jess on this one. I'm much more I don't like getting into arguments, especially if it's gonna hurt my relationship with someone. But if it's a serious thing that I have strong beliefs for, I'm not gonna back down for that.
I'm kind of like both of you because I really don't like conflict, but when an argument comes up, I'm gonna be right, and I plan on being right.
Yeah, I'm just like Kenny. You can ask any of my friends, ask Jackie. We get in arguments all the time over little things because I always have to be right.
I don't like arguments or conflict, but when they come up, I always stand my ground.
I know conflicts arise in my house a lot, and we may not be the one to start it, but we know that we have to be the one to finish it, and we have to have the last word. It's a matter of pride.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But when it comes to certain things, I'll know I am wrong, and I will find a way somehow to make myself right. I don't care if I have to change the argument. I will end it right.
Sometimes just for the sake of ending the argument, I'll just let it go and just walk away and be like, okay, you're right, you're right, you're right. And when I go around into my corner, I'm still right.
A famous leadership author, Kenneth A. Wells, writes, "A good listener tries to understand what the other person is saying.
In the end, he may disagree sharply, but because he disagrees, he wants to know exactly what it is he is disagreeing with."
Most of us know at least one person who always has to be right.
Although Kayla says she always has to be right, there is someone special in her life who she gives a little leeway when it comes to being right.
So I find myself being one of those people that always have to get their point across and always has to be right. I have not disagreed with people to disagree, but if I feel that you're saying something that is not based on fact, I will try and get my point across to you. It is highly difficult for me to admit that I am wrong because I'm not a person that just talks to hear myself. If I'm talking, there's got to be a point behind it. And for me to admit that I'm wrong is hard because if it's based on fact or what I believe is true, then I don't feel as though I'm going to be wrong because majority of the time I'm correct. The person that I feel has to always be correct is my grandfather. He feels as though because he's reached up there in age and he's pretty seasoned that he knows everything. Even if you come outside and say the sky is blue, he'll say, no, it's not. No, it's not. No matter how many examples may be right in front of him, he just feels as though he's correct and nobody else matters because he's correct. At the same time, I don't blast out like, you're wrong, or what I'm saying is correct. Of course, I'm gonna be respectful to my grandfather. I wouldn't wanna argue with him and change his mood and make him angry or nothing, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to listen to what you have to say because you're so seasoned that maybe it's something that I didn't experience yet, that maybe I may experience. Even though I know that the sky is blue, I'm just open to everything he has to say because that's my grandfather.
Many of the teens on the street also had people in their lives who they feel always have to be right.
Next, they will tell us about these people.
And also give their opinion on whether they think it's possible for two people to disagree on something and yet neither one of them is wrong.
Do you or do you know someone who always has to be right?
Yes.
Yes, I know people who always have to be right.
Yes, I do know someone who always has to be right.
Yes, my cousin.
My friend. My mom.
My mother always has to be right.
My dad. He thinks he's smarter, but he's not.
I know a lot of people that always have to be right.
A lot of people.
They just don't think they're wrong.
They always argue their points, and like even if they're wrong like completely, they'll say the sky is purple, and I'm like, no, it's seriously blue.
Usually, I always want to be right, but if I'm wrong, I will admit to it.
Is it possible for two people to disagree on something, yet both of them not be wrong?
I don't think so.
That's crazy. Nah, that never happened. That never happened to me yet.
Yes, that is possible for two people to disagree on something and still be right on both parts.
Yeah, of course, because there's always two points of view.
If there's two answers to the question.
There are certain situations where it's your own personal opinion.
They're your opinion. Doesn't mean an opinion's never like right or wrong.
You could say that the water's cold and somebody says the water is hot, but like it's their own body temperature, it's their preference.
It's their own beliefs. You can't really be wrong if you disagree, unless it's a fact.
Well, you know, Kenny, I was just kidding around earlier in the show about saying you always had to be right. Well, kind of, not really. But actually, I really do know somebody. One of the teachers I had this year always had to be right. She taught philosophy, and philosophy is one of those things where like, there's really no right answer. Like there's so many answers. And every time I would answer something, she'd be like, no, I don't think so. I'm right. And I'd be like, are you kidding? And so in the end, I just ended up disagreeing with her for the sake of disagreeing because I just couldn't stand it. So I would totally agree with her and just be like, I don't agree with you, no. So what about you guys? Do you know any people who always have to be right?
Hey, no.
In all seriousness, no.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In my life personally, my father always has to be right. His word is law, he is correct, and no matter what I do, because he is the father of the family, he's correct in everything he does.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. My dad is the exact same way, and I will argue every one of his points. I could be right. He could talk about something he has no idea about, and he will try to be right, and I'll be like, no. He said, no.
My English teacher always had to be right, and since when I argue, I always have to be right, we have 80-minute blocks of class, and we would argue for about 50 or 60 minutes about one little thing, maybe like how we interpreted the book differently, because nobody would budge on their beliefs or their opinion.
Yeah, I have a teacher that I know that's just like that. If there's like a problem on the board, he'll like have the wrong number down there, and I'll redo it on the calculator and be like, Mister, look at like the calculator. And he'll be like, oh, I guess I made a mistake there. But he'll still say that he was right the whole time.
Well, for me, it's usually my mom because she always has to be right on everything. Like, we just fight constantly, like, about little things, and she always has to be right, like, all the time.
I'm actually best friends with Kayla's sister. Jessica has absolutely no ability to admit she's wrong. You could have 10 cameras and fingerprints and say, Jessica, you pressed this red button. No, I didn't. So I'll sit there for days, on hours, on months, on years. I went backwards, but still, it's just she will not submit to being wrong.
We need to recognize that in all likelihood, neither of the people who are at odds with one another is totally wrong nor totally right.
If we try and remember that at the onset of a disagreement, we have taken one step forward in resolving, or at least attempting to resolve the difficulty.
Sometimes we may even agree to disagree with someone.
So can you guys share a time when you've agreed to disagree with somebody?
For me, it's my sister. When she always gets in a fight with me, I always just agree with her because I get fed up with, like, everything she says.
Yeah, like with one of my best friends, like, he's that personality, like, we're both like, we always have to be right, but sometimes with him, it could just go on for days. So I'm just like, you know what, whatever, all right, you're right. I'll let you win this time, but it's only like once out of like 100 times that we argue about stuff.
My brother and I, when it usually comes up to questions of faith, we both have completely opposing views, so it gets to the point where it's like, okay, we don't want to argue about this anymore, and we just stop.
I'm like what Vince said earlier in the show, when I'll be arguing with my teacher, I'll just be like, all right, you're right, fine. She'll turn around or go to talk to someone else, and I'll just be like, I was totally right on that.
Well, I know me and one of my best friends, we're both pretty stubborn, and we both have different views on the legalization of abortion. Like, I'm pro-life and she's pro-choice. And neither of us ever budge, like, we're best friends, but we just can't seem to come to terms on that one issue. And it's something that I'm passionate about, but I'm not gonna go disrespecting her because she has a different opinion than me. We agree that we disagree.
When I'm in an argument or a disagreement, if I see that the logic that they're trying to convey to me is in fact correct or true, I'll submit. I'll say, you know what, you are right, I was wrong. And I think it's that type of thing that shows character in people.
Next, the teens on the street tell us about times in their life when they've agreed to disagree.
Share a time when you were able to agree to disagree with someone on something.
On a breakup, a good breakup. Smoking, not to smoke.
I had a disagreement with my mom about going to a party.
Actually, one time with my friend, we were having an argument going on for like 2 days. Every time we were together, we were just fighting. It was like a stupid argument. We both had our own views on it, and we both believed in our own things. We're two separate people, and we agreed to disagree on the thing.
Have you ever tried to mediate a disagreement between two friends?
Of course, I always try.
I do that all the time. I love to help friends out when they're fighting. Actually, I'm doing that today. It's not working so far.
Usually when people disagree where I'm from, they usually try and fight. Basically, I just stand in between because if somebody hits me, they know it's a very wrong thing to do.
I tried to settle an argument with my friends before. It kind of did work out sometimes, but when the other one was too mad, it didn't.
I'll try to change the subject and just move on from it because it's usually not really that worth fighting over.
I guess like you sit them down and you have them talk and you explain to them that friendship's more important than other things.
Kayla also has resolved disagreements by agreeing to disagree.
Her mom is someone who she often agrees to disagree with.
In fact, in the end, she'll usually admit that her mom was right.
Majority of the time, I'm able to agree to disagree because if I feel as though I'm not getting my point across, then there's no point in me wasting my breath trying to get you to understand because you're not willing to understand. Me and my mom, we don't really argue that often. She is a very headstrong person, and so am I. Normally, she's the only person that I can just agree to disagree because I don't want to get angry at her, and I don't want her to stay angry at me. The most common term that's used between me and my mom is I don't see it, and she'll come back with that comment saying, well, you never see it, and you're just going to see it later. So I'll just be like, okay, Mom, you're correct. You're right. Okay, can we just stop arguing now? Like, if she wants to pick my outfit of clothes, I'll tell her, well, that really doesn't match, or I don't see what you're saying. Like a shirt that has multi-colors in it. And she'll pick the smallest color in the shirt to try and match. And I'm like, Mom, it does not match. And she just refuses to listen. So I just go, you know what, Mom, okay. But then when I'll go to school or I'll go to wherever I go to, everybody be like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. How did you come up with that concept? I'm like, that's my mama, that's my mama that came up with that. My attitude has changed over the years because I am more willing to listen and interpret another person's disagreement or opinion with me. If you're gonna argue with me just to argue, I'm not gonna feed into the negativity. I'm gonna try and be positive or just walk away from the situation.
Have you ever tried to mediate a disagreement between friends?
I have a diverse group of friends. So when we were in a class at one point, something that started as a joke between two of them became more where the disciplinarian had to sort it out, and they wouldn't talk. So I stepped in, not as to pick a side, but to show them, okay, this is very trivial. You're risking your friendship of X amount of years for something as dumb as this. And at the end, they sorted it out. They were fine, whatever, but like, it happens, and it's gonna happen. It's almost inevitable at times.
I hate it when they say, oh, whose side are you on? And I'll just look at them and be like, I don't have a side. I'm just trying to see if I can find a way to get you both to calm down.
Like with my brother and I, when we will argue, I don't want to lose that friendship because, I mean, he's my older brother. I want to be able to look up to him and I try to retain the brotherhood that we have. And he's really taught me, because he's like, you need to respect my views and not like pounce on him every time we talk about whatever it is. So I've really learned to accept other people's opinions and realize that it's not just about me.
I have two friends that sometimes when they argue, it escalates into almost a physical fight. So I've had to physically get in and separate both of them, and it's helped me learn that no matter what you're arguing about, it's better to use your words than your fists.
I would have to say I think it's easier to, for me, to stop an argument between myself and a friend other than two of my friends, because I'm the type of person that doesn't like going to sleep knowing that there's someone out there that's like so mad at me, one of my closest friends that's not going to talk to me.
It's important to examine our own attitudes and behaviors when trying to resolve conflicts.
Allow the other person to speak their view without interruption.
Hopefully, the other person will also allow you to do the same.
If you come to the conclusion that you still disagree, validate what the other person has said by telling them you appreciate their thoughts and feelings.
Even though you disagree with them and that you're glad that you both had the discussion.
You may have even learned something about the topic, even though your opinion hasn't changed.
Next, Kayla will give us more advice on how to handle disagreements.
The advice that I have for youngsters out there to help them solve disputes amongst themselves is to just listen to the opposing side, listen to what they have to say. Because if you're not listening, the disagreement will go nowhere. But then again, everyone is entitled to their opinion. So that's why I say listen so that you see the other person's side. And then once you hear them, you can counteract what it is they're saying. That way, they know you're listening, they know they're getting their point across, and at the end of the day, you get your point across too. Even if you are right, especially if you're right, you don't go, ha ha, you know, I just won, I beat you in that, because that's too much. You just you and the person know that at the end of the day, they learn something new, and you help teach them something new.
Well, this year for my public speaking class, we had to write a persuasive speech. And I decided, like I said before, I'm really passionate about being pro-life, so that's what I chose to write my speech about. And I wanted to do a really good job. I wanted to be really persuasive. So when I was doing my research for my speech, I looked on pro-choice websites and I tried to see the other side, just so I could be more informed. And you know, that actually reaffirmed my belief even more. But I think that's a really important thing to do. Like, we have to be open-minded and make sure we do see the other side, because, you know, we have to be knowledgeable. We can't be closed-minded.
That was the situation as I was describing before, when I would argue with my brother about faith. You need to listen to the other side to understand exactly what you're arguing against, and to be knowledgeable so that if you do come into the situation again, you know how to respond.
I know I fight with my parents a lot, and my sister, as we talked before, often acts as the mediator to step in and to say, you know what, it's not worth it. And when my sister has to step in, it's usually at that point where it's either going to go really good or really informative or really bad and turn it into a very heated argument. But she always tells me to always try and see through his eyes, put myself in his shoes. And when I'm done talking to my sister, I always find that I take something from the argument, whether it be not to say this to him or how to address this topic with him.
St. Paul tells us in his letter to the Ephesians, therefore, putting away falsehood, speaking the truth.
Each one to his neighbor, for we are members one of another.
Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun set on your anger.
St. Paul no doubt recognized that when we differ in our opinions, we can consequently become angry with one another.
We need to step back after we have spoken our truth and allow the other person to digest what we have said and allow them the opportunity to speak their truth as well.
By trying not to take what other people say personally, we not only protect our feelings, but we set an example of Christian kindness.
Next, the teens on the street give us advice on how to handle disagreements.
And if any of them feel that their faith helps them when they are faced with a disagreement.
Basically, all I do is if there's an argument, I try and walk away.
A fight lasts less than your friendship does with someone. So if you have a fight, you can always say that if that's a real friend, they'll get back to you, back with you.
Just stop and just let it go.
I don't think my faith teaches me anything to be objective in disagreements.
Faith teaches you hope. So I guess that's how it helps.
It teaches you to be stronger and just believe in yourself and believe what you say is right.
Teaches me that there's bigger things in life and you shouldn't fight over silly things.
It teaches me that, to get along with people, you have to accept them and everything, for who they are and what they do, and even if they're wrong, God says to forgive.
In Psalm 116 we read, I love the Lord because he hears me.
He listens to my prayers.
He listens to me every time I call to him.
Next, Kayla tells us how she loves the Lord.
And how just knowing that God listens to her prayers and understands her situation helps her to agree to disagree.
As long as I know he hears me and he understands where I'm coming from and why I'm coming the way I am, then I can live with myself at the end of the day. Because I know he understands my situation. Of course, I talk to him every night. God's like my best friend, he's my right-hand man. And even though he may not answer me right away or I may not see the answer right in front of me, I know he's listening. He has helped me agree to disagree through prayer because I can voice my opinion and get whatever off my chest. My faith helps me respect people even if they disagree with me because, like I said before, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And you have to be willing to forgive, even if the person hurts you. He has taught me in the long run to trust his plan, to be open to opposite people, to opposing people, to people who love to argue, to people who are hypocrites, to people who are judgmental, to a very long range of people who are just their own selves. He just taught me to be open to changes.
Well, I know my faith, it really helps me, one of the biggest things, it helps me decide what is worth fighting over. I ask God to help me guide my decisions, and it's also being brought up in my faith, it has taught me to respect people, and it's also taught me to be open-minded and accepting.
Like you guys read from the scripture passage before in Ephesians, where St. Paul says to not let the
sun set on your anger.
Yeah. It's really important to remember, when you ignore it and just pretend it didn't happen, it starts broiling and it can develop into something bigger, and someone will have this anger deep inside of them that is really a grudge against you. So it's important to forgive them or apologize to them, to not so much end it there, but just end it on a good note.
Matt said that earlier about he doesn't go to sleep without letting that argument be quelled, because he doesn't want someone being mad at him. And I sort of agree with that. If it's an argument over something petty or something serious, I know that letting the argument be put to rest will allow everybody to sleep better. And I know that arguing might not necessarily be a sin. It could be a positive thing. However, if it's over something petty and you know that you're wrong or you know that you're not trying to be the best person you can be, then I think that it might be important to let it go and to even pray over it or reflect over it so you can realize that being right isn't everything.
I know when I read scripture, I always try and read it with an open mind so I can be able to learn things and kind of develop who I am. So I usually use that same idea when I enter into an argument. I always try and enter with an open mind and willing to learn something from it.
When I'm dealing with an argument, the first thing I always do is I pray for patience. I'll be like, God, It's getting a little bit out of hand. Please give me the patience to help me get through this. And it'll take a little bit longer at times, and sometimes it'll come right away. But I just know that God's hearing my prayers and he's really there for me. And as long as I have that presence, like I know that I can have the patience to deal with it.
I know that when you disagree, you could always pray to God to help you get over and forgive the person when you disagree on stuff so that you agree more and understand and have an open mind about what you see.
Here are a few other things to keep in mind when trying to resolve conflicts.
Try to be flexible and brainstorm some ideas together that don't cross either respected emotional boundaries.
Give a little and do your best to extend the olive branch.
If all else fails, as it sometimes will, exercise patience as the gospel calls us to do.
Just as you are on your own life journey in faith,
so is the person you are in the disagreement with.
It may never be truly resolved, but you will walk away from the experience more mature in negotiating differences.
And this is a skill that is not only expected in the workplace as we move into adult life,
but is desperately needed in the world.
It is also what Jesus would want us to do.
So how do you resolve disagreements?
We'd love to hear from you. Contact us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And we'll leave you with this final thought from Colossians chapter 3, verse 15.
And let the peace of Christ control your heart.
The peace into which you are also called in one body.
And be thankful.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.